This is Ezekiel Drews, host of Podcast, A Star Wars Story. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Rachel Mullins, host of Hashtag No Filter Friday, here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my new show, Hashtag No Filter Friday, where we talk about all of the sexual misconduct allegations swirling around Hollywood. A new show drops every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Hashtag No Filter Friday. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
The latest headlines.
If they go out and wipe the floor with the Texans, I might buy in.
The insightful interviews.
Whitney McIntosh, SB Nation.
I was more impressed with John Carlo, especially when you consider Aaron Judge's all-star squad.
The hottest takes.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley had a great game against Iowa, but he hasn't done much.
Can all be found on Press Row. Here's your host.
It's clearly time for a change. It's only a matter of time before it happens.
Christian Heimel.
Once again, welcome everybody on Press Row. I'm Christian Heimel, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network. So glad to have you guys here with us, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, or as always, our wonderful website, thephmedia.com. Big game is finally here. Super Bowl 52 coming up on Sunday. The New England Patriots against the Philadelphia Eagles in Minneapolis. The Vikings so close, obviously, to become the first team ever to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium. Really exciting game coming up on Sunday. We will get to it all later. I'll give you my official picks. We've got it covered across, even though we are not in Minnesota. We have it covered on both sides of the field. Mike Sielski of Philadelphia News, the Philadelphia Inquirer, as well as Philadelphia Daily News. He will join us and talk Eagles. Can this team finally win their first ever Super Bowl championship? How did this team, even without Carson Wentz, an MVP caliber quarterback, make the number one seed worthy there and make the Super Bowl? And then Guregian of the Boston Herald will join us to talk New England Patriots and the dynasty that is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. How much longer can this dynasty go? Is Rob Gronkowski going to be able to play? And just how that defense, this is my biggest question, how that defense is able to step up after really one of the worst statistical defenses in the league this year. But we'll get to all of that, our first Super Bowl preview show. We're so happy to have you guys with us. We got a lot to talk about as well, including your questions, which you can always submit via social media. We're so happy and blessed to have all of you as supporters. Don't forget to find us on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. Find us on Facebook, Press Row Podcast Public House Media, or email the show, PressRowPHM@gmail.com. If you want to interact with me on Twitter, you can, at Chris Heimel. I want to talk first off about a lot of stuff that's happening in the world of the NBA. We start almost every single show with this just because it is right in the heat of the NBA season, and with the trade deadline fast approaching, a lot to talk about. You saw a huge trade the other day, Blake Griffin going from the LA Clippers to the Detroit Pistons for four players, including Avery Bradley and Tobias Harris. So what does this mean exactly for the Clippers, a team that, as it looks, is still battling heavily for a number 8 seed for a potential spot in the Western Conference playoffs? It means really one thing, that Steve Ballmer and that group over there with the Clippers, they are looking to get rid of some salary. They've got a big salary dump coming because they understand just how many free agents are going to be available come the end of this season. I mean, this is really interesting when you look at all of the people who are going to be free agents here coming up this summer in the NBA. And listen, the salary for Blake Griffin was unbelievable. Just dumb. I don't understand how it happened, but the Pistons are going to acquire that deal and that contract from Blake Griffin. Last summer, he signed a 5-year deal worth over $170 million. The average annual value, $34 million, second in the NBA, only to Steph Curry. the way it's going to work, Clippers are going to pay $215,000 of that over the next over the next 4 years. The rest of it is going to be paid by the Pistons. So it's a huge money dump for the Clippers. But listen to some of these names coming up in free agency. Obviously, you have LeBron James, but you've got other big name players like a Jahlil Okafor, for instance. A number of others like Paul George is going to be available. Some of the others who are absolutely impressive that are going to be big-time names. DeMarcus Cousins might be available. J.J. Redick. Chris Paul even might be available to be back. I doubt it'll happen, but there are a number of other guys who are out there that will be free agents come the end of this season. So it's a huge money dump. That's kind of the big reason for this, obviously. And when you look at some of the other guys, we mentioned DeMarcus Cousins, Trevor Ariza will be out there, Marcus Smart, a couple of other small pieces that they may want to go after. So they understand that to be competitive in this free agent market, that they're going to have to get rid of a lot of salary. And don't expect it to be done just yet. DeAndre Jordan will probably get shifted. Lou Williams might go. But what I think this says more than anything else to the Clippers fan base, because it kind of said it when they traded Chris Paul to Houston over the summer, what it really says now is they're going to go the Philadelphia Sixers way. They're going to trust the process. They're going to trade for younger guys, try to compete in the playoffs now to be able to get that experience, but also dump salary so that they can go out and get a big-name free agent and get someone who is going to be an impact player, whether that's Paul George, LeBron James, who knows? There are a lot of big names that are going to be available as a free agent coming up. I mean, even in a couple of years, Kyrie Irving becomes available. And LA, everybody talks about it as a destination to go play. The Lakers and all the drama, this is what the LeVar Ball effect has now done to the Lakers, I think, too. The Clippers see the LeVar Ball effect, and do people want to go deal with that headache of playing with his son and Lonzo Ball? Or would they rather go and play for the Clippers where they can still live in LA, still have that celebrity lifestyle, be in Hollywood, and get that kind of money still and not have to deal with the headache of LeVar Ball? It's a big key to kind of think of, and that's the insane part about this, is that somehow this kid's father is going to potentially determine where some of the best players in the league go and play. They may go play in LA. It just might not be for the Lakers instead. So the Blake Griffin deal kind of surprised me, but when you really look at the numbers and you look at what it does to set up Los Angeles for a while, it's not as surprising. So should be interesting to see what happens as we get closer to the trade deadline coming up next week on February 8th. It's so close to being here. We'll touch on it a lot more next week, obviously, when we know everything that is going down, but should be really, really interesting to see. Another thing that's kind of interesting to see is how exactly some of these teams are starting to come together a little bit. You're looking at some squads in the NBA that are really starting to turn things around. Milwaukee's playing really well. They've won a few games here in a row. The Pistons, and that's the big part about this, is the Pistons had lost 8 in a row, or lost a good chunk of games in a row, and fell out of contention in that playoff spot. But now with Blake Griffin, who knows? Maybe it does help bring them back up as they fight with the Sixers for an 8th spot. Other than that, I mean, it's really interesting to see what the Thunder have done here recently. I mean, Oklahoma City is starting to play a heck of a lot better. And I think what's really interesting about this is when you watch the way that Russell Westbrook has started to play. He's starting to play like the MVP again. He's not worrying about getting Carmelo Anthony touches. He's not worrying about getting Paul George his touches. Instead, what he's worrying about doing is going out and being the best player on the floor, being the MVP of the league like he was a year ago. And when you look at him, again, he had 37 points the other day against Philadelphia. Yeah, he got completely posterized by Joel Embiid, but you look at how he's played over the last couple of weeks. He's averaging close to, averaging close to 30 points a game, 9 rebounds and 10 assists per game. He's averaging close to that since the start of the new year, since January. And it's insane to think about when he really decides to turn it on and become the most aggressive guy. He's almost averaging another triple-double. averaging over 25 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds a game. He's close to doing it again, and when you look at it, it is what's making the Thunder that much better. And that was the impressive part about him last year, and why he won the MVP, because as the most valuable player, if you take away his performance, what does it do to the team? And it's what makes LeBron James so great. It's honestly what's making Kyrie Irving so great in Boston, is that these ultra-talented people, Steph Curry, even in Golden State, what makes them so ultra-talented is that mindset of, I'm the alpha, I'm in control, watch what happens. You see this a lot in college basketball. You look at Trae Young, you look at Joel Berry or Marvin Bagley for Duke. I can remember a few years back when you looked at a number of other guys. I'm trying to think. Blake Griffin at Oklahoma. You looked at Paul Pierce when he was playing at Kansas. You look at some of those guys at Kentucky, like a Karl Anthony Towns or an Anthony Davis. When they got on a roll, when they decided they were going to take over, the entire game became different. When Doug McDermott got hot over there at Creighton, you see it a lot more in college basketball, but the NBA is so filled with superstars. And when you get these super teams like you have in Oklahoma City, if you get one guy who's just an absolute alpha and goes out there every night and proves that he's an alpha, it changes the complexion of the team. And that's what Russell Westbrook has done. He has changed the complexion of the Thunder. They are quickly rising, and it certainly helps that teams like San Antonio are starting to struggle, especially without Kawhi Leonard. Teams like Houston, they might be able to catch every now and again here and there, but it all comes down to, can they beat the Warriors 4 times out of 7? And we won't know that, obviously, until we get to the playoffs. But I'm really impressed with what Russell Westbrook has done for this team, for the Thunder, to be able to help really kind of turn their season around. Now, Cleveland, again, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, I mentioned LeBron James as one of those players. It's been impressive to see their struggles, and they've started to come back a little bit here with a lineup change. But again, I don't think when it comes to the NBA, it's not so much about the lineup and who guys are playing with. It's about the mindset that these players have. And when you look at the mindset of a LeBron James, when he's ready to take over, he takes over the game. It's unbelievable to watch. When you look at Isaiah Thomas, isn't one of those. He was last year with Boston, but that's not his role this year. And yes, coming back from the injury is going to help in the surgery. But at the same time, you need guys like Kevin Love to actually feel like he's getting his touches. When you have those type of egos, Kyle Korver to be able to step in and hit his shots. Isaiah Thomas is going to have to go from being that top guy to being a second fiddle in Cleveland. Not that he's not talented enough to be the top guy. He just is playing with the best player in the game, the best player in the world right now in LeBron James. When LeBron decides that he is going to go out there and just dominate, the Cavaliers are a better team because it loosens everybody up. The problem with LeBron has always been that he's been too selfless. Not selfish, selfless. And he tries to get too many people involved, and it messes with the flow. When you're the best player on the world or the best player on your team, like Russell Westbrook is, no disrespect to Paul George or Carmelo Anthony, but take over. When you're the top dog, take over, go after it. It's what's making the Thunder so great. It's what has been the biggest struggle with Cleveland and with LeBron this entire time. We'll see exactly how it all happens. We'll see what trades get made. Again, Blake Griffin's trade kind of opens up, obviously. We didn't think it would be Blake Griffin getting traded. It was going to be DeAndre Jordan, maybe Lou Williams. But now that Griffin's been traded, expect much more of a salary dump for this Clippers team. And it'll change how a lot of things happen. Whether Cleveland's a part of that, who knows? Because there's still a lot to decide if they want to become NBA champions before LeBron probably heads out of town coming up this summer. A lot to talk about in the NBA, so much to talk about in the world of sports. We have your questions coming up, but it is Super Bowl week, and we begin our Super Bowl preview with Mike Sielski, Philadelphia Inquirer, and the Philadelphia Daily News. Can the number 1 seed in the NFC, somehow underdogs, upset the dynasty of the New England Patriots? And here's a more important question. Are Philly fans really that bad? And can they hold up to the result no matter what it is? We'll talk with Mike Sielski coming up in just a little bit on Press Row.
Listen to every episode and get the latest shows sent right to you. Subscribe to Press Row on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, and Stitcher.com. or visit us online at www.thephmedia.com. This is Press Row with Christian Heimel, a Public House Media podcast.
Back here on Press Row, Christian Heimel here with you, broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network. Time to really dive in to our Super Bowl 52 preview. Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots. Mike Sielski covers the Eagles, the 4.5-point underdog here this weekend for both the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Philadelphia Daily News. He joins us now here from Minnesota. And Mike, I guess before we get to the actual Super Bowl, I want to talk about news coming into the NFC East. Alex Smith being traded to the Redskins, now opponent of the Eagles twice a year. What do you make of the decision? What was your initial reaction and that of the Eagles players?
Well, there wasn't much discussion among the Eagles about the trade because obviously they have bigger fish to fry at this point. My reaction is that it pretty much keeps things status quo for the Eagles. I mean, they had handled the Redskins this past season with Kirk Cousins there. I don't think Smith is an appreciably better quarterback than Cousins. I think they're comparable players. They're both fine players if you can, decent quarterbacks if you can put weapons around them. But Smith is also 4 years older than Cousins, and so you wonder when a decline may come around, and then the Redskins will have to address the position again. But I think from the Eagles' standpoint, it keeps things pretty much status quo, and I think their greater concern after the Super Bowl is making sure that Carson Wentz, rehabs his left knee fully and completely and is able to come back at some point next season. If not the same quarterback he was, a pretty good approximation of it.
What would you say was the biggest change in Carson Wentz's game this year prior to the injury that helped lead this Eagles team to be as good as they were?
I think it's a couple different things. I think he felt more comfortable within the offense, a year of experience that allowed him to master it. I think you saw that in the accuracy of his passes. He was, that had been a concern both last season and throughout the offseason. There was some rumbling that he was tinkering with his throwing motion, and whatever he did with it, it worked because he was able to make some terrific downfield throws all season. I think that made a difference. I think the weapons that the Eagles added at the skill positions, form of Alshon Jeffrey and Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount, Torrey Smith to a lesser extent really helped. The offensive line, with the exception of Jason Peters getting hurt, has been healthy and intact. And Halapoulivaati Vaitai, who stepped in for Peters, performed fairly well. So I think all those, those combination of things, led to what we saw from Wentz before he got hurt, which was a quarterback who probably was going to be the MVP of the league. And I would argue, even though he got hurt, he should have been the MVP of the league because that's how good he was and how important he was to the Eagles.
Mike, when you talk about the Patriots and the aura that surrounds them, it's obviously Belichick and Brady, but how impressed have you been with what Doug Peterson's done from a coaching standpoint this year? Not just moving them from 7-9, what they were a year ago, but to continue to keep the ship afloat with the injury to Carson Wentz.
It's been very impressive, especially as you mentioned with Wentz getting injured. The thing that to me makes the Eagles an intriguing matchup against the Patriots in this game is that, you cannot play scared against the Patriots. One of the things they excel at, and you saw this in last year's Super Bowl against the Falcons and in the AFC Championship game this year against the Jaguars, is that they get you into positions where you have to kind of change who you are in a way. You're forced to be more daring, or you're forced to just play differently from what you're accustomed to playing, because you can't be cautious against them. We saw that, for instance, when the Jaguars took a knee with 55 seconds left in the first half and holding a 14-10 lead and 2 timeouts. And they said, well, we're content and fine with that. And it was a mistake. It was kind of a red flag saying, hey, we're playing it safe. We're playing not to lose. The advantage the Eagles have in this game is that under Doug Peterson, they have played, to put their foot on their opponent's throat and crush it all season. They've gone for it on fourth down, I believe the second most times in the league. They made it the most times in the league. Their percentage of getting a first down on fourth down was the third highest in the league. They're comfortable playing kind of with the pedal to the metal, and I think they're going to have to play that way if they're going to beat the Patriots.
He's Mike Sielski, Philadelphia Inquirer, Philadelphia Daily News, joining us here, Super Bowl 52 preview show on Press Row. Chris Long, LeGarrette Blount, two guys who have Super Bowl rings from a year ago with the Patriots. What have they been telling their new teammates about their old teammates getting ready for the weekend?
Just relax on the one hand, but be cognizant of who Brady and Belichick are. Both of those guys were on a team last year that was down 28-3 midway through the third quarter of the Super Bowl and managed to come back to win. So more than anybody else, they have an appreciation and an understanding of, what the Patriots can do. And I think, it's balancing that. It's balancing the relaxation and the aggressiveness with which the Eagles have played all year with the knowledge that, this particular coach and this particular quarterback present a very different challenge from what they've been up against most of the year.
That Eagles front seven has been impressive all year, maybe not in terms of sacks numbers-wise, but in terms of the pressure that they do put on quarterbacks. Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett, mentioned Chris Long. How much is the pressure that those guys put on Tom Brady going to affect the outcome of this game?
I think it's the key to the game. I think Fletcher Cox was absolutely terrific in both of the NFC playoff games that the Eagles won. He's a dominant interior lineman, and they have 8 defensive linemen, who they rotate, and all of them can get after the quarterback. All of them can create pressure and problems for an opposing quarterback without having to blitz. And in the 2 Super Bowls that the Patriots have lost in the Brady Belichick era to the Giants, that was what the Giants were able to do. They could harass and pressure Brady without having to blitz. Again, I think that's the key to this game. You didn't mention Brandon Graham and Timmy Jernigan. They are 2 other really key pieces for the Eagles along that defensive front, and I think that's where this game is going to be won or lost.
And we mentioned the Wentz injury, and you mentioned Jason Peters, but how much did the addition of Jay Ajayi after Darren Sproles' injury really help keep this offense doing what they've done all year?
Well, it added. He's their most talented running back. I think that's clear. And it's done. It's been another way to take pressure off of Nick Foles. They're not asking Foles to win or lose games. They're asking him to. They're not asking him to manage the games either, but they're asking him, to run an offense with aggressiveness, with downfield throws sometimes. But now he also has an additional skill position weapon at his disposal. You saw, in the 2 playoff games, a number of swing passes to Ajayi that he was able to turn into substantial gains. He's a tough running back. He gives them a good burst between the tackles. He's been a huge help to them.
Mike Sielski of the Philadelphia Daily News and the Philadelphia Inquirer joining us here on Press Row. Mike, I lived in New York City for about 10 years, and they always hate Philadelphia, hate Eagles fans, but are fans in Philadelphia really that bad?
I don't think they're that bad. I think they're notoriously demanding of their teams, and I think that for whatever reason, and we could spend a whole show about this, pro sports are much more important to Philadelphia and a greater part of the city's and community's culture than is the case with a lot of other cities. And I think that, the fact that the teams have not been all that successful. The city has celebrated 1 major pro championship in the last, 36 years, 35 years, is a major reason that, these fans get impatient and angry and all those sorts of things. So, there's been a lot made of Philly fans and their behavior, and, there's plenty of bad ones out there, but there's plenty of long-time loyal ones who, really do deserve to see their team win on Sunday.
Mike, what would it mean to, you mentioned the Philadelphia, not just the city, but the community, what would it mean to them, the fans, the players, this franchise, if they're able to hoist their first ever Vince Lombardi trophy on Sunday?
Oh, it would be a party the likes of which the city has never seen. And I include hosting the bicentennial of the United States back in 1976. I don't think anybody would go to work on Monday. I think, there would be partying in the streets, around City Hall and Center City and around various neighborhoods and communities for days. It would be the biggest sports moment and sports achievement in the city's history, without a doubt.
Mike Sielski, Philadelphia Inquirer, Philadelphia Daily News. Mike, I know you're busy this week. Thanks so much for taking the time out. Best of luck this weekend. Enjoy the game.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Mike Sielski, Philadelphia Inquirer and the Philadelphia Daily News here. And we'd started off that conversation with obviously the trade news of Alex Smith going to the Washington Redskins. And the Redskins have really kind of, I think, screwed up their entire franchise. Dan Snyder has done a terrible job running that organization, be it the franchise tags of Kirk Cousins instead of signing him to a long-year deal, not getting the weapons that he needs on offense. and then Jay Gruden just having issues with everything that has happened. Getting Alex Smith, I don't think helps that much because Alex Smith wasn't as talented this year without the weapons that he had. And the Washington Redskins don't have a Travis Kelce. Jordan Reed may not be healthy. They certainly don't have a Tyreek Hill type player. They certainly don't have Kareem Hunt in the backfield. So I don't know how much that trade helps the Washington Redskins. It really does help the Chiefs, obviously. They get a really good defensive back in Kendall Fuller. They get a third-round pick, and they get to have Pat Mahomes start next year. The real question is, what does it do for Kirk Cousins? He could sign as a free agent in a number of places. I love the idea of him going to Arizona. Could be interesting. Minnesota, depending on what happens there. The Jets. Denver, who knows? But the trade made zero sense for the Washington Redskins, in my opinion. Made all the sense in the world for the Chiefs. I think they did a great job getting younger, obviously, and not having to pay Smith what he's going to end up getting, that 4-year extension now with the Washington Redskins as well. Meanwhile, for these Eagles, and listen, I'll touch on it in a little bit as well, but Mike is absolutely right. That front seven is ridiculous. Jermaine Jernigan as well as Ingram, they're all such a talented group, and it's been talked about ad nauseum. The only 2 times Tom Brady has lost a Super Bowl has been when there's pressure at his feet, when you make him uncomfortable in the pocket, and this Eagles squad certainly has the ability to do that. Doug Peterson, I think, has done a tremendous coaching job this year with all of the injuries. It's been beyond impressive. But again, it's Bill Belichick and it's Tom Brady. Karen Guregian of the Boston Herald, she covers this team like nobody else up in New England. She will join us next to break down the Patriots side of things as we continue on with our Super Bowl 52 preview show here on Press Row.
Want to be part of the show? Go to Facebook and search Press Row Podcast Public House Media, or find us on Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. You can also email the program, PressRowPHM@gmail.com. This is Press Row with Christian Heimel, a Public House Media podcast.
Back on Press Row, Christian Heimel here with you guys. Our Super Bowl 52 preview. Just spoke with Mike Sielski of the Philadelphia News, Philadelphia Inquirer, Philadelphia Daily News as well. And now time to flip things over to the defending champs, the New England Patriots, as they get set to take on those Eagles this Sunday in Minneapolis. Karen Guregian covers the squad for the Boston Herald. She joins us now here on Press Row. Karen, thanks a lot for the time.
Sure.
And Karen, I'll start with the biggest question that has been asked regarding the Patriots going into the Super Bowl, and that is the health of Rob Gronkowski, his latest, going through the concussion protocol.
He is, but he made an appearance last night in Minneapolis doing something for Madden, and he was asked if he thought he was going to play, and he kind of gave the thumbs up. He basically told everyone he was going to play on Sunday. I mean, he hadn't completely passed the protocol, but he was pretty confident he'd be able to.
What does his presence do on the field? I mean, they did it without him last year in the Super Bowl. Brady's done it without Edelman virtually all year long. They did it without him in the second half against Jacksonville. But what is it about Rob Gronkowski's presence on the field that helps this team?
Well, I mean, he's huge. I mean, he's a matchup nightmare for any defense. Safeties can't cover him. Linebackers can't cover him. If you put 2 guys on him, that leaves somebody else free. And even when you put 2 guys on him, that still doesn't guarantee he won't catch the football. He's tall. He's athletic. He's, in the red zone. He's Brady's favorite target there. He's a beast. And while the Eagles do have a very good defense, they haven't exactly done the best job covering tight ends over the course of the season. So Gronk figures to be a pivotal player in this Super Bowl.
When we discuss the Patriots here, really since the turn of the century and how dominant they've been, there's always something regarding some sort of distraction, whether it be the hand injury, whether it be everything else in the past years. But what is it about Tom Brady and Bill Belichick from a mental standpoint that allows him to kind of put any of those things off the field on the back burner and just continue to play so well?
Well, I think with in each of them in their own right, I think, Belichick is just, one of the best defensive minds in the game. And he also knows how to push the right buttons in his players to get them to perform. And he also knows how to put his players in the right positions to succeed. He doesn't need to have, a hugely talented team. He doesn't need to have a group of all-stars. And I think that's why he's such a great coach. He can literally take people off the street and put them in positions where they can basically get by and get the job done if they do their job. Brady, on the other hand, he's so competitive, and you would think that after, I don't know, Super Bowl 3, 2, whatever, after winning a couple, some people are satisfied, but he's just never satisfied. He's so driven, he's so competitive, and he wins one Super Bowl, he wants the next one. And even at age 40, he's always driven to succeed. He always wants the next one. And it's what's kept him going for this long, and it's what's going to keep him going to age 45.
Speaking with Karen Guregian of the Boston Herald here on Press Row, you kind of just brought it up there. Brady wants to play till he's 45. He certainly looks like he could, but how realistic are those chances that we see Tom Brady continue to play, especially if he wins another Super Bowl here this weekend?
Well, I mean, no one has done it. Again, Father Time is undefeated. But, again, you watch him and his regimen, and as well as he's playing now, I don't think anyone has played this well at his age, this consistently. And, I wouldn't put it past him. But, again, things happen, injuries happen. But given, he has other things riding on being 45, he has the TB12 method, and, he's trying to prove that his way will get him to 45. So he's definitely motivated to do it.
If you could, Karen, kind of take us back to the start of the season, a home loss, the opening night loss to Kansas City, a tough game on the road against New Orleans, the defense giving up a lot of yards, but Matt Patricia has found a way to turn this thing around, and they've become very much a bend-don't-break kind of defense, giving up a lot of yards, but not so many points.
Well, I think traditionally Patriot defenses are bend but don't break, and and they basically stiffen in the red zone, and they're content to let you gain yards, but in the red area, they're going to force you to kick field goals, and they're happy if you either kick field goals or if you don't score, because they have Tom Brady on the other side, and Tom Brady's going to be putting up points. I think what happened early on in the season is they had some new faces in the defense, and they had some big-time communication problems. And not only were they bending, but they were breaking big time. They were giving up big play after big play. And so they had to sort some issues out collectively with the unit. And once they got those issues ironed out, all of a sudden they were back to being a defense that bent, but they weren't giving up a lot of points. All of a sudden, from allowing 30 plus points a game, the first 5 games, they literally cut that in half the rest of the season.
Super Bowl 52 preview show here on Press Row, speaking with Karen Guregian of the Boston Herald, covers the New England Patriots. This Philadelphia Eagles team is one that once Carson Wentz went down, a lot of people left them as the underdogs, left them for naught, and they've kind of embraced that. What are the Patriots saying about their opponent here coming up this weekend?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're the number one team in the NFC, and I don't think they're going to take them lightly one bit. I don't think they're going to take Nick Foles lightly. He played great in the NFC Championship game against the Vikings. He does tend to run hot and cold a little bit, but I think they're going to anticipate that Foles will be on his game. They have this. They run the run pass option with him. I mean, he's not quite Carson Wentz in running that, but he can be very effective with that. They have a great set of backs with Jay Ajayi and old friend LeGarrette Blount, and their receivers are terrific with Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar, and I think the Patriots know they're going to be in for a tough game. And hey, it's the Super Bowl. They're expecting nothing less.
You mentioned LeGarrette Blount, and obviously he'll be going up against his former defensive coordinator and coach. But on the other side of the football, Chris Long going up against his former teammate and former offensive coordinator. What about Chris from a defensive presence? What kind of disruptions does he bring to the table? Well, that front seven, they weren't necessarily at the top of the league in terms of sacks. I think they were in the middle of the pack. But what they really do is bring pressure. I mean, they pressure, and if they can basically rattle Brady or get to Brady or get him off his spot or disrupt his rhythm, I think that's the most significant element. They don't have to bring him down to the turf every single time, but if they disrupt his rhythm, disrupt his timing, get him moving around, that's basically one of the tickets to beating the Patriots. What's it like covering a Bill Belichick press conference? Because I feel like it's just a love-hate relationship with everybody in the room. Well, it's either not. You can take it two ways. Either it's not a lot of fun because you don't get really much information, or it can be actually quite entertaining just to watch how he just completely obliterates the media with his kind of droll answers. We talk so much about the system that Bill Belichick has created and how any player can come off the street and perform and win a championship, but he's done it with coordinators as well, and by all accounts, Josh McDaniels, Matt Patricia will be leaving once those clocks hit 0 on Sunday night. What is it about the culture that he has created, not just on the field, that has made Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots so great? Well, I think that everyone is on the same page. Everyone is always prepared. The players are always prepared, over-prepared, and they'll tell you the same thing. I don't think they enjoy going through all the meetings that they have to go through and all the things that they have to do on the field. But when players from other teams come here for the first time and they go through this process and they go through all the meetings and they go through all the things that they do and almost ad nauseum, but they see the difference it makes in games when they're prepared for certain situations, how situationally sound they are, and how, they pay such attention to the details and the special teams plays. And, sometimes winning, there's such a fine line between winning and losing, and the Patriots always come out on the positive end, or they always seem to win the close games. It's because they are so well schooled in the finer details and the nuance and everything. And again, it all goes back to Belichick, whereas some of these other teams, they don't all know the rules. They aren't all as well prepared
situationally to play the game as well as the Patriots, and or they aren't as well conditioned physically and mentally as the Patriots are.
Last thing for you here, Karen, and again, speaking with Karen Guregian of the Boston Herald, the New England Patriots win the Super Bowl if they protect Tom Brady and he has time to throw the football, they will win the Super Bowl. It's Karen Guregian, Patriots beat writer for the Boston Herald. Karen, thanks a lot for the time. We appreciate it. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
All right.
All right, Karen Guregian of the Boston Herald. And listen, whether you love them or not, the Patriots have created a culture and an aura. It has been because of Belichick and Brady that this is the most dominant franchise we have ever seen, arguably the best coach and best player of all time in the National Football League. And they're looking for yet another championship that would be their sixth together and their second in a row. Your questions as well as my preview and prediction on Super Bowl 52 coming up next on Press Row.
Listen to every episode and get the latest shows sent right to you. Subscribe to Press Row on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, and Stitcher.com. Or visit us online at www.thephmedia.com. This is Press Row with Christian Heimel, a Public House Media podcast.
Wrap things up here on Press Row, our Super Bowl preview episode here, Super Bowl 52. We are less than 3 days away from the big game. Can the New England Patriots, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick win their sixth Super Bowl championship back-to-back years? Or will the Philadelphia Eagles come away with the franchise's first ever Vince Lombardi trophy? My big thanks to Karen Guregian of the Boston Herald, Mike Sielski, Philadelphia Inquirer, and Philadelphia Daily News for joining us here on the program this week. As always, we thank you guys for your support here. As always, you can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM. Find us on Facebook, Press Row Podcast - Public House Media, or you can always email the show, pressrowphm@gmail.com. You always find me on Twitter as well, at Chris Heimel, and again, always check us out, share, rate, review, subscribe to us all over the place. We're on Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, the PH Media, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play as well. Get to your fan questions before we actually really I give you my kind of preview of the game coming up here in Minneapolis this weekend. Couple of questions for you first. Derek down in Virginia wants to know if the Cavaliers, the number 2 team in the country, do they have a right to be the number 1 team in college basketball over Villanova? And listen, it's kind of a compelling argument to make here. You look at the most recent polls, which were released on Monday. Virginia ranks second, 17 of the 65 first-place votes. It would be their first number 1 ranking in 35 years, back in the Ralph Sampson era. And here's the interesting part. Villanova has been one of the top teams all season long. They are a great program. Jay Wright has turned them into a powerhouse. Both teams are 20-1. Villanova right now has 30 more first-place votes than the Virginia Cavaliers. But here's the thing, and this is why I think that the Cavaliers have a legitimate claim to the number 1 team, being the number 1 team in the country. As you look at who they've played and what they've done, Villanova's one loss, and this, I know it bothers people a lot when you look at strength of schedule, but we do it in college football. We're going to do it nonstop with these ranking systems. Look at who Villanova has lost to. They lost at Butler, 101-93. Conference opponent who is unranked and who sits right around 500 in the Big East. A conference that, according to real-time RPI, their conference has a 57.57 strength of schedule as a conference. Meanwhile, when you look at Virginia, their one loss was, let's see here, at 18th ranked West Virginia, an out-of-conference opponent by 7 points, a team that is still ranked very highly in the standings here. You look at where West Virginia is, Press Virginia, top 15 in the country, and who they've beaten as well. Virginia has wins over North Carolina at home, which they won by 12. Clemson at home, which they dominated the 18th ranked Tigers at the time, 61-36. They almost doubled up a team ranked in the top 20. And then most recently, one of their biggest ones coming away with a big win at Duke the other night. So you look at what Virginia has done, undefeated in the ACC, wins at Duke, home against UNC, home against Clemson, all three of those ranked teams, and their one loss being to a ranked West Virginia squad. Meanwhile, Villanova has not beaten a ranked team yet this year. Excuse me, beg your pardon. They did beat Xavier a couple weeks back in dominant fashion, 24 points, 89-65. But and then beating Gonzaga at home as well. So 2 ranked teams at home as opposed to 3 ranked teams, including 1 road game. And of course, Villanova's loss is worse than Virginia's. You look at the strength of schedule, you look at the conference that they play in, the ACC is much more talented than the Big East. I firmly believe that the Virginia Cavaliers should be the number 1 team in the country right now based on the rankings. They're playing great. I love what Tony Bennett has done there. He's been doing it for years now, and to see them get this kind of ranking is tremendous. We'll see exactly how it goes the rest of the way in the ACC for Virginia, but it's great to see that type of defense get played, and it's really showing just how talented they are. Villanova is a tremendous team, don't get me wrong, and Jalen Brunson might be the best player in the country. But when you consider who they've played so far, Villanova is based off of merit and the fact that they were national champions a couple of years ago. Virginia right now still has to prove it because, as we've all noticed over the last couple of years, great defense. Their offense struggles at times, and I think that's what's hurt them. But they are growing up the ranks, and I definitely think they have a legitimate shot at being that number 1 team in the country here in a couple of weeks, depending on how things go the rest of the way. Eric in La Crosse, Wisconsin, with the Brewers trading for Christian Yelich and signing Lorenzo Cain, are they the favorites in the NL Central next year? They very well may be, but here's the interesting part. There are still so many free agents left, and I love what the Brewers have done here. They may have the best pure outfield in the game right now when you look at it, because that outfield, you're going to have Christian Yelich in right, Lorenzo Cain in center, you're going to have Ryan Braun in left. Travis Shaw was great last year, and then Eric Thames, if he gets anywhere near as hot as he was at the start of last year, if he's able to expand that, makes it that much better. Keon Broxton as your 4th outfielder is scary good for this team. My problem is they've had struggles with pitching last year. That was kind of the main reason why they weren't able to really go the distance. They have a very solid staff, some decent guys. Giovanni Gallardo, of course, is very good. Jeremy Jeffries, I really like. Boone Logan is great in the bullpen. Signing Matt Albers was huge for them. They did that a couple days ago. That's where I have the issue of this Brewers team, is can their pitching realistically hold up for an entire season and do exactly what they need them to do? And with so many free agents still out there, especially Jake Arrieta, Yu Darvish, Todd Frazier, Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, the list goes on and on and on of how many guys are still out there. Even Victor Martinez is still there. Lance Lynn is still out there. There are a number of other guys that can be signed right now that could make a legitimate difference in who is a favorite. But I definitely think the Brewers have put themselves right now, without any other signings, if Darvish remains a free agent, Arrieta remains a free agent, and all those other guys, I think they have a legitimate chance at it, just because I think they will be a very solid group coming into this season. They're going to be very, very talented, very good team, especially from the plate. Defensively, they're going to be great, but my pitching is their biggest question. As it stands right now, they've put themselves as the favorite in the NL Central, but that is without any of these other guys being signed. Once it looks like, once a guy like Kevin Cashner, he could be a huge pickup for somebody. Jonathan Lucroy, again, Darvish and Arrieta are kind of the 2 big ones, but I think the Brewers have started to address those things. Getting Lorenzo Cain was huge. Trading for Yelich was great. It's going to be fun to watch. They may have, again, the best outfield. It's between them right now and what they have done in New York, obviously with Aaron Judge, Brett Gardner, and Giancarlo Stanton. But we'll see exactly what happens here in a little bit. I absolutely love what they've done. I really love what they've done in San Francisco, too, the Giants. But it's still, I think that's the Dodgers league right now. The Giants are going to be interesting if they can all stay healthy, because people forget last year the Giants did not have Madison Bumgarner for that season. So we'll see exactly what happens, but going to be a lot of fun to watch. Can't wait. Really, really excited to find out exactly what happens in Major League Baseball. Pitchers and catchers report in just a little less than 2 weeks, and we're going to get all the information as we get closer and closer to the season actually beginning. Be really, really fun to watch. Last question here for you guys. Kyle in Pennsylvania. Ronda Rousey signs with the WWE. Does this hurt or help her career as a mixed martial artist? Look, I mean, I don't know much. I watch the WWE. It's mindless entertainment to me. Ronda was a tremendous mixed martial artist. I don't think anything she does in the WWE will hurt what she did in the octagon. Same way that I don't think Brock Lesnar going back to the WWE or originally being part of it hurts what he did in the octagon. Ronda will always be the person who elevated women's mixed martial arts. She will always be that. Whether she'll be an entertaining wrestler, I mean, listen, she's got some of the acting down. She knows the stunts because she's done it in movies like The Expendables, like Fast and Furious. But, you know, you're just going to have to watch. I'm not going to critique her technique in WWE. All I know is that she's a big name. She'll help sell tickets. She'll help sell pay-per-views. And in an era, again, I'm not a huge WWE guy. I have watched it a good chunk of my life, and they're probably one of the best women's divisions they've ever had in WWE, and Ronda will certainly, I guess, bring more viewers. Whether she adds to it from an actual skill set standpoint, yet to be seen. But always appreciate your guys' questions, but it is time to really look at and break down this matchup here this weekend. Super Bowl 52, Philadelphia at New England, and exactly what can go down. These two teams, a lot of fun to look at when you look at their records. Both 13-3, both won their divisions. It's really interesting. I mean, it's insane to think that Nick Foles has a chance after a couple of years ago putting up a great season and collapsing down the end. Could be the team that beats Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. When you look at how these teams match up statistically, it's really kind of hard not to go against the Patriots. Obviously, a tremendous offense. The best in the league this year. Brady has defied logic, defied gravity, all that, defied age, everything. But the Eagles getting that pickup of Jay Ajayi, and we touched on this weeks back, that was huge for them because now you have that dual threat of LeGarrette Blount to just pound it up the middle, who can break a couple of big plays, and of course Jay Ajayi. Don't get me wrong, the Patriots certainly have that as well. When you look at guys like a Dion Lewis or a Mike Gillislee, they definitely have those guys as well. But it's impressive to watch what Nick Foles has done here. The rotational defense, I was very, very impressed with how the Eagles offense picked apart the best defense in the league in the Minnesota Vikings 2 weeks ago. They dominated them, destroyed them, wasn't even close. Being outside, I think, helped because Keenum struggled outside, and those indoor teams always do. If that game was in Minnesota, it might have been closer. It might have gone the other way. The fact that it won't matter the elements outside, how this game goes, it makes me wonder exactly how much more of an advantage that defense for Philadelphia will have. The defense is great. They get after guys. Chris Long, Fletcher Cox, and that's the insane part. Chris Long, as we heard from Mike Sielski, Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount on that Patriots team last year. They know more about this team than anybody. But at the same time, Bill Belichick is the best coach the NFL has ever seen. You give him 2 weeks to game plan, and it will be almost impossible to beat him. That being said, we've seen the Patriots lose twice in the Super Bowl because of great defensive line pressure. And the Eagles have that kind of team to be able to go after and really disrupt Brady. They've done a great job limiting their opponents, but the insane part about this is less than 80 yards rushing they've allowed, less than 230 passing yards they've allowed as a team this year. Both teams, even though the Patriots have given up a lot more yards, both teams have only given up about 18 points a game this year. That's the impressive part. Here is where I give the edge to the Patriots. Not only is it experience, but you look at the championship games, the conference championship games. Eagles won a blowout at home. Patriots had to come back late, and they've done that multiple times this year. When you do that multiple times, where you come back from double-digit deficits multiple times in a season, it brings together this bond of the team that you trust everybody that, hey, we're going to be able to do this. The offense trusts the defense can get a stop. The defense trusts the offense can score quickly and they can go out there and get the ball back. It's an incredible thing that it does in any sport. You look at what the Celtics have done this year and how many times they've come back. You look at teams like the Astros who won all those extra inning games last year. Championship teams are made by how they respond in those situations. You got a lot of the guys who were on that team that was down 28-3 last year. I give it to experience, and I give it to the most recent game that they played. The Patriots will win this game. It's a 5.5 point. It's an interesting spread to look at here for this game, but I give the edge to the Patriots, and it will be a lot of fun to watch. But at the same time, I would not be surprised if Philadelphia's defense finds a way to get it done. You saw it with the 2 times the Giants beat them. It's what happens when you get great defense on Brady. He's not very mobile. He hates getting out of the pocket. And I'm telling you right now, if they start to do that, it will be a long day. If Rob Gronkowski can play, as we heard from Karen Guregian, that'll be a big factor as well. But again, Patriots played without him in the second half against Jacksonville, came back and won. Who knows exactly? That's why I love this. We can talk about it all we want. Patriots 4.5 point favorite. They'll probably cover, I think. But ultimately, I think the Patriots win. But again, until we play it, who knows? Who knows? It'll be a big fun show this weekend. I hope you guys enjoy the big Super Bowl. My thanks to Karen Guregian of the Boston Herald, Mike Sielski of the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the Philadelphia Daily News for joining us here this weekend. Next week, we will talk Olympics, as it is opening ceremony in the Olympics, as well as we'll speak with a number of different people to get you excited for one of the greatest showcases of world sports in Pyeongchang coming up in a little bit. As always, thank you guys for your support. As always, you can find us on Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts, or thepHmedia.com. Check us out on social media, Twitter and Instagram at PressRowPHM, PressRow Podcast - Public House Media on Facebook, or email the show at PressRowPHM. You can find me at Chris Heimel on Twitter, and until next week, I'll see you on Press Row.